and Hindus, of course, all working together. And the other day, just last week, 1st of August, in fact, I had the ambassador with me, and I went to the Great Center, and the Muslim who joined me in order, he was doing the hijab in the shrine. So I told the ambassador, watch him, I will tell you later. And I told him, he is a Muslim from Chad who has joined the order some years ago, and Billy Mott has accepted him and officially become a regular Muslim. We have one more, I think there are some more. We have got one more in Billy Mott, from Gangar. He is from Iraq. He is a Shia Muslim from Iraq. You know, he goes to Hajj, but he also sits in front of the image of Khatim, and that's his path. So this is the excellent, what is important synthesis of all religions together. And I was getting this sense of some of the speeches. I think we are really fortunate to be born in a land where this kind of integration of synthesis could take place, acceptance and respect for all different parts. You so beautifully advised us to serve God in man. You prayed, you see how strong he has been, how happy he is. May I be born again and again and suffer thousands of miseries, so that I may worship the only God that exists, the only God I believe in, the Son, total of all souls, and above all, my God the wicked, my God the miserable, my God the Lord of all races, of all species, the special object of my fortune, and repeated, give love, give help, give service, give anything little thing you can, but keep out from burden. Don't ask anything in return. But it will come. Understanding Swami Vivekananda's message and putting it across to our youth would be the simplest way in which I feel that you could address many of the problems that India is facing today. Each young person could begin with himself, prepare himself for the world ahead by ensuring that his personality well shaped and rounded. He needs to ensure that his physical, mental and social psychological faculties are well tuned to the work ahead. The young need direction, and what great focus than that of serving others. One also needs to understand that social service does not automatically translate as giving up all the worldly responsibilities and sitting half-clad and starving in remote villages. And we used to say, religion cannot happen in an empty stomach. You must feed them first, then only religion could come. It begins with arousing one's social conscience and translating this in practical terms into social action. One needs to be pragmatic and keep one's needs and limitations in mind before embarking on any such activity. One needs to begin with oneself first and then gradually expand this reach concentrically to include more and more deserving persons. This is one of the ways that success and practicality of our social actions can be demonstrated to the youth of today. Each young person can continue to be what he is. Technocrat, scientist, an engineer, or a doctor. You don't have to change your profession to become a social entrepreneur, to become useful to the society. There's so much in our own small life that we could do something about it. The idea is to start with these small changes and incrementally build on them. These will be the recipe for larger and greater tasks ahead. Being a good and honest technocrat, scientist, engineer, doctor itself is a good beginning. If we then expand to include more and more lives that we touch in our everyday existence. For those fortunate who are really capable and not limited by the demands of family and every demand in existence, they could take on more permanent projects and start ahead in making social work of future and creation. And of course, the Ramakrishna movement has based on those people mainly. training those in the court, but large number, millions of the others who are from the other side. Millions of others. Balancing work and life, as good managers put it, need not be limited to the work atmosphere alone. We could really extend this to the social realm too. By doing this, thousands of qualified and willing youth can be cooperative, spending quality time in more higher level benches. And finally, what matters the most is the understanding that in undertaking social activities like answer not only to the problems of people around us, but also to our own inner problems that undertaking social activities. We started from the lines that we heard from the Gandhi. To the starting point, to the snapshot, and then action. I shall conclude my presentation with Swamiji's following message for you. Seek for the highest, aim at that highest, and you shall reach the highest. Arise, awake, and stop not till the Lord will go with you. Thank you for your attention.
We now invite Dr. R. Balasubramanian. Then Swamiji Keshwaranji, senior monks of the Ramakrishna order, Dr. Sanyal, and friends. You have heard a lot of Swami Vivekananda for 2 days, and I don't think I can say anything new. But all I can say is you do have a lot of patience. The very fact that you endured all of us for 2 days itself shows that one P is already taken care of. Only the other 2 P's are left, purity and perseverance. And I'm certain you will soon manifest that too. Being here today is a privilege for many reasons, for reasons more than one. The first is celebrating Swamiji's 150th birth anniversary anywhere in the world is a joy. It's an opportunity to remember that extraordinary personality. I don't even call him a person because it's very difficult to define Vivekananda. All you can do is only experience Vivekananda. You really can't bracket him and say he's a monk, you can't bracket him and say he's a nationalistic Indian, you can't really say he's global in his thinking. It's so difficult to give a description to something which you have to only feel. And that's exactly what Vivekananda wanted. So speaking about him is a great privilege, is all that I can say. The second reason is, having been to Rajkot and being invited by Swami Keshwaranji itself is extraordinary. He doesn't know, but his talks are quite popular on YouTube. And I've had, whenever you feel down, it's nice to go listen to them. And so it's very nice, especially as I grapple with understanding leadership in the context in which it's practiced today, and as I try to teach leadership, I find it very easy to simply fall back on the resource called Vivekananda and convert him into some scientifically palatable words and present it to my students. It's very easily accepted that way. The third reason is, more importantly, I just was trying to remind Mrs. Jayanti that many years ago, 5 years ago to be precise, I wrote to her seeking for some counsel on whether I should follow her footsteps to Harvard. And she very politely told me, well, the choice is yours. And I think that's typical Vivekanandian. The choice is finally ours. As we live in a world which is globalized, not from pure and economic point of view, from the point of view of the problems that we throw at each other, the problems that we create for each other, I think the only way we can solve them is together. And there can be no greater personality to bring about this social transformation than the philosophy of Vivekananda itself. What he spoke of and what he wrote maybe 120, 130 years ago finds greater relevance today. And a conference getting young people from 24 countries can just not, there can be just no other way of celebrating this idea of Swamiji and this message. Just look at all around us. We have managed to make the world such a horrible place to live in. And we seem to be discovering newer ways of doing it every other day. Look at India. 150 years ago, possibly nearly 25% of the world's GDP came from India. And like Vivekananda said, we were a great nation. Every Indian could be proud. And today, 25% of the world's poverty burden is in India. We just about managed to decimate our own philosophy, our own values, our own ideology to something so petty and narrow that we invent the problem first and then try to find out the solution. I always keep saying this to a lot of my government friends. Mrs. Jayanti may not like it. I've lived for 30 years amidst the tribals in the forest. I was very happily locked out there till Harvard wanted me. So it was a very different life I had. Lived with some of the finest people who actually were closest to nature and maybe closest to God. Learned a lot from them. Thought I was serving them. So inspired by Swami Vivekananda, I went in there as a young doctor and quickly realized that you really are nobody to solve the world's problems. Vivekananda says it so beautifully. It says like a dog's curling tail. All you can have the satisfaction is of trying to straighten it out. I am not sure we'll ever straighten it out. But then why does the world exist? I think the greatest gymnasium that we could have to possibly exercise and flex our muscles. But if you can do it in the spirit of Vivekananda, it will do a lot of good to us. That's what I can tell you. So when I went in there, I thought I was going to serve these people. As a young physician, just out of medical school, you think you can solve the world's problems. Just let's take a look at India. Sanyal mentioned a few. Despite 65-66 years of independence, what have we managed to create for ourselves? I was part of, unfortunately, for 5 years, I was part of an anti-corruption agency in Karnataka called the Lokayukta. I was vigilance director to extraordinary justice called Justice Santosh Hegde, and my last investigation as a former director was on something called the public distribution system of Karnataka. An extraordinary opportunity to possibly take care of human hunger has been reduced to a program which feeds 1800 crore rupees every year to corrupt and dishonest politicians and bureaucrats. Your heart burns when you hear of such things. You really feel sad, and I think what kept my sanity as I lived in this world of poverty was faith in people like Vivekananda and his message. I always keep telling a lot of my colleagues that but for Vivekananda and Gandhi, I might have become possibly one of India's greatest Naxalites. So you can see human exploitation at its worst forms if you just look around. And the people I lived with were content, peace-loving people living in the middle of a forest. And here comes a government in the name of development, uprooting them, displacing them, dismantling their cultural fabric and throwing them out to the woods, as we say, outside the forest and say, here my poor people, you are poor and I, the government, will take care of you. So it's funny how governments create poverty first and then establish its relevance to take care of the poverty. And I think that's where Swami Vivekananda thought that you don't operate that way. You operate not out of taking care of anybody, but in the process of trying to take care of others, what you end up doing is taking care of yourself. And so today I would like to spend the next 8 to 10 minutes in just talking about the message that Swamiji brings to all of us young people. And it's extremely important in the Indian context because some of our friends shared it. I was extremely inspired. Those 5 or 8 or 10 people who spoke, possibly spoke the entire 2 days conference. If you can distill it out, I think they all shared it with us. The voice from Russia, the voice from South Africa, the 3 young people from Adipur, if I got the name right, from the Kutch area. It's transformational. I don't think we need to talk of anything else. And I found Swamiji's message so very resonant in everything that they said. And he started so beautifully. I think all that we need today, and despite the fear of being sounding repetitive, I would like to share this. Like Swamiji said, possibly the greatest leadership thinker of our times, he knew the